Hi, I'm Kate Allison. Today I'm coming from Davidson, North Carolina, my home office here, to talk to you about anger. We're about a year into this global pandemic, which is really hard to believe. And I'm hearing from so many people that just complicated emotions coming up with that. Sort of like the joy of spring here in America kind of emerging, but also the grief over a year lost and also anger, all sorts of different emotions. So today I want to talk about anger. It's an emotion that I see a lot of people stuff down and a lot of people try to avoid and not really want to look at, but it's such an important emotion. And like all of our emotions, they're just visitors, and each one carries a message and some wisdom. So let's dive into anger. Let's talk about the anatomy of anger first. So in a few videos back, we talked about this idea of our nervous system from Stephen Porges' Polyvagal Theory. And in that, we kind of broke it down into these three parts of our nervous system. We've got the ventral vagal system that happens when we feel safe. That's kind of where we're calm and safe. Then when we sense danger, we go into the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. And when we sense a life threat, we go into freeze. And it's very possible to feel our emotions while still staying in ventral vagal. It's possible to feel safe and feel angry at the same time. Many of us don't experience that though, because when we finally reach anger, we're really in this place where it doesn't feel safe. It feels dangerous and we're in this fight or flight. So let's kind of talk about how to work with that. I want to give you 10 different outlets for anger because like with grief and tears that come out, anger just needs an outlet. It needs a place to be expressed and to be seen. So the first one is pretty primal. It's just a scream. It's really letting it out. I was reading recently that the NYTimes opened up a primal scream hotline, which is just a hotline you can call and scream into. And that's such a beautiful way of allowing ourselves this primal nature and just acknowledging that we're not alone in this anger. Sometimes with anger, we push it down, push it down, push it down. And when it finally emerges, it's like a jack in the box. It's a little scary and it can scare us and scare those around us. So sometimes we just need to go into a room and scream. So if you're not used to feeling your anger, tapping into that primal scream can sometimes feel a bit foreign or unfamiliar. So often when I'm working with clients, I like to coach people through doing 3 different screams. We're gonna do a high-pitched one, a really low-pitched one, and then our authentic guttural primal scream. So grab a pillow, because we don't want your neighbors to be scared of you screaming. Grab a pillow and let's go for it. The first one's gonna be high-pitched. So put the pillow over your face for just this one big exhale, and we're gonna scream on the exhale. Notice what it feels like. That's our high-pitched one. Now deep, like guttural, the lowest guttural scream you can do. Let's try it. All right. We're gonna do one more. And at this point, like sometimes as anger softens and it melts, often tears form in the melting of anger. So if grief bubbles up as we're talking about these grievances and this anger, give yourself a space for those tears. Feel free to pause the video at any point and just let that grief come up too. All right, one big guttural primal scream. See how it feels. Maybe just be with that. Be in the wake of that primal big scream. Notice what it feels like. Sometimes we can also do a silent scream. Maybe we don't have a pillow here, and it can achieve a really similar effect. So I invite you to try this. Take a deep breath in and do a silent scream. Notice what that feels like. And just see which one feels best for you. Some of these might feel like too much, some might feel like just right. And the goal with anger is to figure out what feels authentic, right, and true for you. So the second tip is just to talk about, or not really talk, to just scream no or stop. Often anger, the wisdom held in anger, the messaging that anger is trying to get you to pay attention to is that somebody crossed your boundaries in some way. Usually anger is a cue that there's a boundary violation. So let's talk about how it feels. We can't always tell somebody, that's not right for me right now. Sometimes we don't hold our boundaries in the moment. So when you have time to yourself and you're reflecting on something and thinking, wow, that made me really angry, but we didn't necessarily hold our boundary in that moment, just revisiting it and yelling no or stop can be helpful. Now, if this feels triggering or too much, I would invite you to pause and just skip over this one, because sometimes revisiting this can be a bit much of saying no or stop. So you can do it into a pillow, you can just yell, and you could even just say it firmly with your hands coming out that sort of mimic that boundary setting. So just saying stop, or saying no. Notice what that embodies for you, what it feels like to embody that firmness. No. Or stop. See which feels right for you. And you can practice that wherever it feels best. The third tip is tremoring. Where did my... Oh, I was sitting on it. I had a strap. So you can use a scarf, you can use an old t-shirt, you can use a dish towel, you can use a strap. And there's more detail to this practice in my Yoga for Grounding video. But basically, if you don't have any shoulder injuries, this can be a great one for releasing anger in your upper body and your chest. So you take your strap or your scarf about shoulder distance, right, with your arms, take it up and then pull it straight down, and you try and rip it apart until your arms start shaking. And you're sort of making right degree, 90-degree angles in your arms and your elbows. And these little neurogenic shakes, neurogenic tremors, are a great way of releasing stress and tension and anger. Just shaking it out. Good. And when your arms feel totally tired and exhausted, you can let your arms go. Take a breath in. Notice what it feels like. Good. The fourth tip is to run away, because that fight or flight response is sometimes equal parts fighting and equal parts fleeing. So if you feel this urge to just run, sometimes just sprinting really, really, really fast, running even for like 20 seconds and then pausing can feel helpful. If you're feeling that urge to run and it's safe to run where you are, maybe just go for a run, even if it's only 20 seconds, and then walk back. Notice what just leaning into that urge to run away feels like. Tip number 5 is similar. It's just leaning into the biological urge that anger or that fight or flight response brings up in you. And this one is punching a pillow. So getting a pillow and setting a timer is really nice for this one, because what I find in clients is that you'll start punching it and then kind of tire out and not really give in fully to just getting it all out. So maybe set a timer for a minute and just punch it out and let it out. Some dust came out of my pillow. Just notice what that feels like. And I know I didn't do a full minute with you guys, but you could set a timer on your own, right? And try that. Okay. The next one, number 6, is to clench your whole body. Clench your fists, clench your face, hold it, and then release it. So let's try it. So clench and squish everything up. Clench your abs. And then let it go. See what that feels like. Just to lean into that tension and then release. Tip number 7 is a practice called RAIN, and it comes from Tara Brach, and it's a practical self-compassion tool. And so one of the things that she talks about is this acronym RAIN. So when you're feeling a big emotion, whether it's grief or sadness or anger or frustration or confusion, just the first step is R, recognize that emotion, allow and name it. So labeling an emotion accesses our prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain. It sort of helps you to come out of that brainstem of feeling not so safe. So recognize the emotion and name it. So even just saying, I feel angry, or I feel overwhelmed, or I feel like running, or that really hurt. Recognize it and name it. The A in RAIN is allow it to be there. Allow that emotion to have a space. Allow it to be there. Just noticing it. And then the I is investigate where it lives in your body. So maybe anger is in your chest, in your heart. Maybe it's in your belly. Maybe you feel it gutturally. Wherever you feel it, maybe it's in your jaw. Wherever you're feeling anger, allow it to be there. Investigate where it is in the body. And then the N for that RAIN acronym is nurture. So maybe it's in your jaw. You've been clenching your teeth, holding back your words. Just allow it to be there. Maybe just hold that space, whether it's your face, your heart, your belly, somewhere else. Just nurture it. Put your hands on that place. Meet it with compassion. Notice what it feels like in your body to be met with compassion. That even anger can be met with compassion in yourself. And notice what happens when you just sit with it for a bit, when you allow yourself to be with it. Often that transmutes the feeling into something different, right? Tip number 8, vent it out. Anger is pretty hot, right? It's heated, it's fiery. We often use the colors red and orange to describe this emotion. And so when we think of fire, there's steam, there's smoke that arises from that. So venting it out can be helpful. Staying stuck in it and not actually letting it out sometimes causes us to stew in it, though. I think there's a difference between venting it and stewing in it. And to vent our anger out, I like to use the boundaries of a timer. That just sets a beginning time and an end time for when we're allowing ourselves to just discharge this anger. So you can maybe set a timer for 5 minutes and try writing it in your journal, like scribble. Don't let your hand stop, like just keep going. Get all that anger, all that grievance out. Notice what it feels like. Often you kind of tire yourself out in 5 minutes. Or set a timer and vent to a friend or your partner, but only for 5 minutes. After those 5 minutes are done and you just got it all out, no withholding, you just kind of get it out, then find 3 things you feel grateful for. And after you've experienced the grievance and the venting, often gratitude comes a little easier. So just allowing yourself to feel that arc of the emotion of anger towards gratitude afterwards. Tip number 9, listen to your anger. Anger carries wisdom like all of our emotions. And Gabor Mate, who's a wonderful Canadian doctor, talks a lot about compassionate inquiry with all of our emotions. How can we ask ourselves with compassion, with kindness, what's going on? Get curious about this call to action in your anger. What's your anger trying to get you to do? Maybe ultimately the anger is inviting you to make some changes, or telling you to stand up for yourself a little bit, or telling you, hey, your needs aren't being met here. How can we get your needs met? So it's okay to be angry. And if your anger is asking you to make a change or to advocate for yourself, let's listen to that. Pay attention to it. Tip number 10 is to breathe. And sometimes anger can feel so suffocating in our chest. And so doing some of these other tips first can be helpful, because sometimes if you're really heated and someone says, just breathe, it's like, oh man, it makes you even more angry, right? So it's okay to not start with that one. You know, it's okay to kind of do some of these other things first. But if you can, try breathing in and out through your nose. Notice what that feels like. Try taking a deep breath in through your nose and sighing it out. Try just taking 3 breaths before you speak, before you say something in anger. Just noticing what that feels like, right? Embodying our anger and letting it have a space in our body, like some of these practices we've talked about, it allows it to pass a lot faster than pushing it down, suppressing it, and not allowing it to come out. And by developing a practice where we can safely embody anger, where we're in control of it, that allows us to stay in this sort of ventral vagal system where we're feeling safe in our anger, where we are in control of channeling that anger rather than feeling like anger is in control of us. We're doing things like punching a wall or hurting someone else or ourselves. So we want to focus on channeling that anger in safety, where we feel safe, where we feel like we can trust ourselves to let that anger out and not have it just stay stuck in our body like a jack-in-the-box being pushed down until it finally comes up. So all of that to say, anger is a valid emotion. It's okay that it's there. And we just have to create intention and space to work with it and to make it our ally and our friend and to not be afraid of it. And I'm really curious if you have found other tools and resources and techniques that work for you with anger. Please drop a comment and share, because I think that fostering that sense of community and sharing with others helps us all, because we're all human and we all feel anger. It's a very, very human emotion, and we can allow it to be felt in our bodies and to pass. So I hope this has been a helpful resource for you. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video or others, please make sure to like and subscribe to my page. And namaste.